All right, great. All right, great. Well, so I'm here with Ansh from actually. How do I say the company? Reltio.
Ansh Kanwar, Reltio.
Ansh Kanwar, Reltio. Yeah.
Reltio is for relationships. You can remember that way.
Oh, cool. Okay. All right. So we're here with Ansh from Reltio. You're the Chief Product Officer, is that right?
That's right, Sean. Chief Product Officer at Reltio.
Awesome. And Ansh, can you just give a simple intro into what Reltio does?
Yeah. So Reltio is about data unification. So we're able to bring lots of different first-party data together for large enterprises. And let's just start with the problem that these enterprises are trying to solve. Yeah, sometimes it's hard for the bigger the company, the harder it is to answer simple questions like, how many customers do we have? It's actually a fairly complex problem because products are sold through different channels. Companies grow through acquisition. Companies have franchisee type of models. There's an accumulation of systems over the years, right? Whether that's different SaaS systems or on-prem applications. Each one comes with its own sort of opinionated view of how to manage data. So at the end of the day, it becomes very hard to answer simple questions, and therefore it becomes hard to run business operations that are consistent, they're efficient across these enterprises. And we've always believed that the power is in the data. And I'm sure as AI, more and more people get into AI, they're going to come to the same realization.
Right.
And so what Reltio solves is data unification, which is the ability to bring together some of this first party data and apply a different variety of techniques to make sure that the output is as trustworthy or much more trustworthy than the different inputs that went in, right? So this data, I'm using abstract terms, I'll make it more real. So this
Sure.
data can be about your customers, about your suppliers, about locations, about products that your company sells. So think about any noun, right, that you need to make higher fidelity. So let's take customers as an example. So you would have in any typical enterprise, you would have customer information in your CRM system. There's probably a customer success system somewhere. There is a shipping or a warehousing system, perhaps an e-commerce system, right? Even these four systems, they have their own variations of information about Shon Burton.
Right.
There is no single view that says Shon Burton, authoritatively, we can say, is such and such customer ID, lives at such and such address, has had such and such transactions with us, and therefore be able to, that information can then be used for downstream consumption. And we'll talk about that in a little bit in different ways. But having that confidence in the first place that data about Shon is really data about Shon, right? The
Right.
completeness of that data is what we started out as to solve for. And that space is what we've grown into the data unification umbrella.
And so as part of that unification, it sounds like quality sounds like a very big part of that unification is,
Yeah,
making sure that.
absolutely. Data quality, but data quality it's a very interesting and important thing, right? You don't solve data quality for the sake of data quality.
Mhm.
You create, you improve the quality of data because you want a certain level of performance out of a business process.
Mhm.
And this has been our approach from the very beginning, that if you start with the business process, the business outcome that the enterprise is looking for, and work backwards from there, then the data, the shape of that data, the connectivity amongst that data, and the level of quality of that data can be refined to the point where it's meeting the business objectives. Yeah.
100%. Yeah. So given how long have you guys been in this space, just the data space in general?
Company started in 2011.
Okay. So
Mhm.
good. So how do you see it? I mean, given that sort of AI, what we see in the conference, I should say, is
Mm.
we see a tremendous broadening out of interest
Yeah.
over the last, really this year in particular.
Hmm.
And how do you think about, like, how is it changing for you guys? Because what we're seeing
Yeah.
is companies that didn't even necessarily really consider themselves data companies
Right.
before are all of
Yeah.
a sudden looking at the capabilities of AI saying, wait a second, this thing
Hmm.
can make use of our data in ways that we
Yeah.
really never thought about. So how's that
Absolutely.
affecting your business considering you went all the way back to 2011?
No, and it's a tremendous moment for everybody in the industry. And what we're seeing is enterprises. I think the big change in the last year, as you mentioned, is with agentic AI specifically, it's becoming very clear how AI will percolate through the enterprise.
Hmm.
Right? With generative AI, there was clarity around certain tasks. You talk about translations and summarizations and content generation. That was fantastic. We knew that would make its way into the mainstream, especially on the consumer side, maybe on the enterprise side. But with agentic, it's very, very clear that this is about reduction in toil. This is about automation. This is the next iteration of you, if you will, of what started off as business process reengineering. There was an RPA phase, there was a workflows phase, right? And
Yeah,
this is really the ability to do those things in a manner that is not fragile anymore, right? That is not process oriented, but really it is about bringing intelligence to the enterprise, and that's never happened before, right? What we're seeing is that customers are now very quickly they've gone through the phases of experimentation. I'm sure you're hearing a lot about the MIT report that just came out that said 95% of all AI projects fail.
right,
That's an interesting statistic, but we don't see it that way. What we're seeing is that there's a lot of experimentation, yes, but the conclusions that are coming out of that experimentation are very clear. And one of those conclusions is that trusted AI has to be built on trusted data, because
right,
that's the one missing ingredient if you think about it, right? These models are so capable at this point. They've been trained on all the world's knowledge except the specific knowledge in your enterprise,
right,
right? And
right.
so that becomes a general open-ended problem, and there's a race right now to try to solve that from a software builder perspective. But also conversely, the race from the enterprises where they see the potential now and really want to build into that promise, because um, what businesses are solving for are what they've always solved for, right? So either it's growth or it's risk management or it's efficiency, right? Those buckets
Right.
always stay the same. And I
Right.
think this is just a new capability that at this point enterprises view as being mature enough, given that they can actually run it off of trusted data.
So how long do you think it'll take everyone to figure out that that's the key?
Oh, I think this is a long-term transformation, right? I don't share the 6 months to 18 month kind of time frame. This is a generational shift,
Yeah.
and it's fundamental, right? I do feel it's a one-way door, that we're not going back on this technology, and the trends from the other angle that is important is this has to be a commercially viable solution. So if you
Right.
look at the cost of inference, for example, last 3 years, I think the cost of inference has come down 900x. That's a
Yeah.
very positive trend. And
Sure.
that means that we can really take this intelligence and plug it into our day-to-day mundane tasks. And I recently read, I think this was a VentureBeat article recently, which said to be successful, AI needs to mold to enterprise processes, not the other way around,
Right.
right? So there's
Right.
commercial viability, there's a understanding of enterprise process, and there has to be this idea of psychological safety that within those processes, this intelligence can actually supplement human activity. And I think there's a lot of fear of supplanting human activity. I think that's a little premature. I think this is a 10-year cycle. Anybody who spent time with Cursor can attest to the fact that it's just not that smart.
Right. Right. It's not. Yes. It's interesting.
Yeah,
We get very excited about
yeah,
the ability to write a 50 line Python script,
that's right.
which
That's
it
right.
can do really fantastically.
Absolutely.
And then
Absolutely.
we go to drop a huge project in that, maybe it's been 5 or 6 years of human coding and
Yeah,
wonder why it's, having some problems. And,
yeah, absolutely.
yeah, you're 100% right. And when we think about agentic AI, I mean, I think that that's been a problem for a long time is getting business owners to understand sort of the physics, the
Yeah,
underlying physics, which you can't change if
yeah,
and
yeah,
it
yeah.
comes back to data, right? So it's
No, absolutely. And I think the other angle to think through as enterprises are adopting agents is that it sort of it becomes a numbers game in a way. So every process that you have encoded today as a as part of a SaaS application. So, something as critical as quote to cash.
right.
That's a process. It lives in a CRM system today. It just happened that the CRM system is built of multiple of those processes packaged together
Hmm.
versus an ERP system has some other processes that are packaged together. Your customer success system has other processes that are packaged together. But what if the goal of agents, which I see evolving, is to take each one of these processes and give you an agent that is the best possible thing for your enterprise to go solve for that process,
Right.
right? Now, suddenly, one agent is replacing, or there's multiple agents that are replacing or augmenting, or these applications are morphing into multiple agents. And all these agents are collaborating with each other, as opposed to, the SaaS world right now is really made up of these silos of both applications and data that don't really talk to each other. It's very hard for them to
Right.
really communicate with each other. And I think that big transformation is also something to watch out for because where you have, I think the number Okta published was 400 odd applications for a mid-sized enterprise,
Wow.
like distinct 400 odd applications. Yeah.
Right.
But what happens if the number of agents, let's say there's 10 agents per application now. Yeah. Now you suddenly have 4,000 agents,
Right.
right? So this order of magnitude increase, you can make these agents at the highest level, you can make them interact with your data in two modes. One is to solve a problem. The agent now goes and talks to these different sources of data. I sort of the example I'd used with your record, Sean, which is distributed in four different systems, right?
Yeah.
Either the agent can go and assemble these four in when it needs to produce the output, like a researcher agent does today, Chat
Hmm.
GPT or others,
Hmm.
and then it sort of presents an output to you. Or you can have all this data pre-assembled, unified in a way that the agent itself can be real-time enabled,
Right.
right? And so, what is the practical utility of it? Well, imagine in the future you're calling into a call center, and the call center wants to know what was our last conversation with Sean? What was the emotional tenor of that conversation? Right? Was it a happy conversation, or was Sean unhappy with us for some reason?
Right.
Well, if it was he was happy and he's calling in, might be a good moment to position a product to Sean. But we want to position a product only in keeping with Sean's wishes, if he has given us the right to position products or
Hmm.
share product placements with us. Number two is we want to maximize the chance of placing the right or making the right sale. Therefore, we want to place the right product. And so, product suggestions that sort of pop up in that call center are very, very important in terms of being recent, right? Because you could have called in the last hour and you would have been unhappy. And if the data that is powering those suggestions or that interaction is 3 hours old, well, guess what? They're going to try to sell you a product that you're absolutely not interested in. You're calling in to settle a billing dispute, right?
Right.
So that those are the kinds of scenarios. Now, what will happen is in the future when you're calling into the call center, it's probably not a human who's answering your call,
Right.
right? So in a way, it doesn't matter if the the entity responding to you is a human agent or is a machine agent. They still need to be powered by data that is relevant to you and relevant and up to date to the minute, right?
100%. Yeah.
So that's kind of our vision for where we want to go, where we are with unified data today. And I think more and more enterprises are discovering that that's the substrate that they need across all of their business operations to really be able to speed up and deliver of today's expectations. Because the one thing that is unchanging fact is we are speeding up, right?
Yeah.
Because of AI, the expectations are getting much more much higher in terms of how fast anything can be delivered, really.
Right. And I think we're all sort of, I think that we're all waiting for that day, to be honest, that these systems are intelligent and they are agentic and they can actually, I can call
Yep.
American Express with a problem or Best Buy, whoever it is,
Right.
and actually get real solutions because and it's getting increasingly frustrating that that's not there
Right.
yet in a way
Right.
because
Right.
we can touch them with ChatGPT and all these different consumer um,
Absolutely.
these apps. So then you go into these
Absolutely.
other experiences where that's not there and it feels very disappointing, right?
That's right. Actually, that's one of the tells. If you call into for support and you get transferred from department to department, and every time the next person picks up, they're like, "What are you calling about?"
Right. Yeah. What's your phone
So
number? Yeah.
yeah, and that the way we view that is this. It's about shared context, right?
Hmm.
We talk about data and we talk about unified data all day long. From an AI perspective, though, it is about shared context, right?
Right.
How do we create this shared context, make it available in native terms, native language that language models understand, and I'll explain that in a second, um, and then be able to update that in near real time, right? So we use this term called data at rest versus data in motion. That's really what we mean, because this shared context, it exists within Reltio, for example, as a graph, right? So
Right.
large language models, they understand these graphs intrinsically because the graphs encode relationships. So
Right.
it's so much easier for them to understand that a customer is related to certain products because the customer bought those products in the past.
Hmm.
And because they bought certain products, they have a certain propensity towards a certain kind of product, and therefore placing a product with a higher probability than if you did not have the relationships, if you just simply had tables that were listing products, right?
Right.
So that is what we mean specifically by shared context. And then updating of that shared context means that when these sort of collaborating agents, when we pass these calls from customer success agent to a sales agent, again, regardless of whether it's human or a machine
Sure.
agent, that context sort of seamlessly is available to each one of them, right?
Makes a ton of sense. I'm excited to get to this place. Not,
We're building it, right? We're all
yeah,
building
we are building. Yeah, it's going to get there, and
it.
life's going to be a lot better for everybody
Yeah,
when they get to do these things. So, what
absolutely.
what sort of stuff are you going to be talking about at the conference?
Well, I wanted to know actually, Don. So who's in the audience? Are these mostly builders, executives? Like, give me an idea about the makeup.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So, so it's changing a lot this year. We
Mhm.
actually have a real-time analytics system that is, computing all this type of stuff, looking at names and
Mhm.
titles and companies and all that kind of stuff. But it's evolved quite a bit. We have a very technical core. So
Right.
2023, it was literally just researchers and engineers. That's it.
Okay. Yep.
Um, from the speaker perspective and the attendees.
Mm.
2024, we saw it broaden out quite a bit in terms of attendees all of a sudden.
Mm.
So we added a strategy track.
Mm.
There's a lot of interest in things like governance and
Yeah.
regulatory and just
Mm.
transformation. How is this all going to work? Um, and then this year we saw a new elevation or new broadening out of the audience again. And so
Mm.
where we are today is we still have a very technical core. So it's coming in right around 50%, a little under 50% are technical of some sort. And
Okay.
that's like 28% of them are, somebody that works every day. And it could
Right.
be the title could be software engineer or AI engineer,
Yep.
whatever it is.
Yep. Yep.
And then the delta there is, technical management, VPs of
Mm.
engineering, CTOs, those type of folks,
Mm.
um, but still have that very technical core. And
Mm.
now it's starting to branch out into just a lot of leadership, a lot of
Mm.
leadership across the board. So we see
Yep. Yep.
large companies. I mean, Oracle's bringing 25 of their people plus 25 CEOs of their
Wow.
customers, for example.
Amazing.
And these are companies that are large enough to be Oracle's customers. So,
Yeah.
they're fast growing big companies or becoming big companies. And we're seeing, so you have that technical core. We're seeing that other 50% really broaden out into, I mean, we've got an HVAC company that has,
Mm.
40 or 50 offices. And this is
Yep.
what I meant earlier by, I think, and this is just a gut feeling, but I think there are these companies that all of a sudden, I just don't know how much they really considered themselves to be even be data companies
Right, right, right.
3 or 4 or 5 years ago. They knew they
Yeah,
had data, but
yeah,
there wasn't some cohesive thing that, could maybe make sense of all of it. And
right.
without hiring McKinsey could, you know,
Yeah,
give them some insights, right?
yeah,
So we're
yeah.
seeing this nice broadening out. And then, when you look at our tracks, um, we've got that applied AI track, which is really about war stories. It's sort of like, hey,
Yep,
we implemented this thing here,
got it.
and here's what happened. And that's why it's new for this year, because we did see a lot of,
That's a fantastic way to
yeah,
way
a
to
lot of change
tell the idea. Yeah.
in speaker proposals and things like that.
Mm,
And then our frontiers track, which is sort of like very forward looking at
mm,
what's going to happen in the next sort of 6 months to a year.
mm-hmm.
Um, and that's our biggest track. It's our biggest stage,
Yep.
uh, and it is pretty broad in general. Like that's why it's such a it's a big room. And
Mm,
then developers is just what it sounds like. So we have
yeah,
the dedicated developer track and a dedicated
yeah,
strategy track where you kind of like compare off. So it's a
got it.
good mix, but that's kind of like the quick overview.
Got it. No, that's super helpful because then I can sort of tune what I'm going to talk about.
Hmm.
But in general, my plan is to connect the connect data and AI together in real terms, right? And when people talk about data and AI, at least for the last 3, 4 years, a lot of the conversation has been about getting data ready to be able to build models or train models. Yeah.
Right. Right.
As AI comes into the enterprise, it's going to be very, very inference heavy, right?
Hmm.
It's going to be about how can we get maximum leverage out of these models. And inevitably, these models will then be acting on data, which is specific to the enterprise, in
Right.
order to produce viable, awesome results, right?
Right.
And so there's a natural friction there where there's a lot of data science and thinking that has gone into organizing data to train the models. But now on the other side, consuming this inference seems like a tantalizingly close goal. But again, MIT says 95% of these pilots fail, right? So
Yeah.
what is that gap, right? We can see it, we can smell it. It's like, you know how it goes. It's a seeing distance, smelling distance, spitting distance.
Right.
So, right? So it feels like we're within smelling distance of this, uh,
Yes.
this promise of agentic AI. But how do we actually get there? At the highest level, that's really what I want to talk about. There's going to be some talk about burgers, I promise you.
Perfect.
Before a
Well,
burger is a burger, it is data.
yeah. Okay.
I'm going to bring that into the conversation, and really talk in because in a way it's a technical change, but it's a very deeply human change that is coming, right?
Yeah.
Because we feel threatened by this technology because we feel it is like us.
Yes.
And at the same time, we have very superhuman expectations of this little piece of technology, right?
Yes.
We saw
Yes.
that with self-driving cars, that because it is AI, because it has sort of shades of being intelligent, we
Right.
assume that it is intelligent and then attribute a lot of things to it, which it is not, right?
Right.
And so my talk is really going to be about, to the builders, really, how can they confidently build given all of this variety of expectations and push and pull and historical or at least short-term failures of adoption of AI in the enterprise. How can they be successful? That's really, if I can get that message across in a few minutes, I'd love for that outcome.
Perfect. No, I think that sounds like, it can be a frontiers style talk because that's what we're seeing with the broadening out is that people are
Right.
coming here to try to understand exactly that. They're trying to
Yep.
understand
Yep.
what is the solution. And a
Right.
lot of people, that's really what's changed. There's a lot of
Yep.
even if it's just a few people within the company, but or the leadership itself, they've
Yep.
experimented a bit
Yep.
and
Yep.
oftentimes have been disappointed, right? Because
Right.
like you said, the expectation is, well, I just plug this in and now we're done. And of course,
Right.
it never really works like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we're finally at the point where, we have this such a powerful engine now to understand
Absolutely.
all these things, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. We just got to build the cloud around it, you know?
Yep, exactly. Yeah, exactly. I love that. That's super cool. So I think you guys, when I first talked to your team, I got pretty excited about it because, that's my history too, is
Mm,
I did a before this, I did a, AI for HR tech startup,
okay.
and resume data is some of the most horrible data you'll ever see. And
Of
working
course. Yeah.
resume databases, right, where you have
Sure.
all those things you've said, right?
Yeah.
There's not just four Shons, there's 15 Shons, or
That's right. That's right.
25 copies that, and
Right.
it's just interesting. And so slogging through that data munging problem,
Yeah.
um,
And it's unstructured data, which has been anathema to data systems so far, right? But all that is changing with this.
yeah,
And how do we unlock the treasure trove in all of that data? Absolutely part of the equation. Yeah.
yeah, I think that's like super relevant stuff for the concert conference. And, like I said, the attendees are there to, whether they're engineers or leadership,
Mm.
they're
Hmm.
really there to figure this out from people that are soaking in it every day, which
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
so
No,
super
I'm really
exciting.
looking forward to the conference. I'll try to stay for as much of the event as I can. Normally I'm in, do the talk out, but I'm so interested in everything that everybody has to say. It's amazing. And thank you, Sean, for actually putting it together, right?
Oh yeah.
It's gonna be a great event. Looking forward to
Yeah.
it.
My pleasure. And yeah, thanks for taking time to chat with us today. And
Always.
really looking forward to your talk, Ansh. And thanks again for supporting the conference,
Yeah, go. This is awesome. See
being
you
part
there.
of it. All
Bye.
right. Thanks. And we figure out how to stop this recording.